Hi, my name is Ned Smith, and I'm going to be talking about how to set up for recording in Logic Express. So before you begin recording, you should look at 5 pre-production steps as a checklist before you actually begin with your tracking. The first thing you should do is make sure you have a proper project name and location. So creating a folder on your desktop to make sure that you have a place to store all your projects. You should make sure that your digital audio preferences are set, specifically your sample rate and your bit depth, and we'll talk about those in a second. Your recording file type should be an uncompressed file type, and we'll go ahead and talk about those, as well as your hardware settings, just making sure that your digital audio workstation is connected to your audio interface. And finally, making sure your buffer size is properly set. So it should be set low for tracking and high for mixing. Now, the first thing I want to show is just making sure that you have a project folder and a place to store all your data. So on my actual desktop, I have here my Introduction to Music Production folder, where I actually end up storing all of my data for my different projects. So I'm going to keep my projects separated. So as I build more and more projects, I'm going to make sure they're all in separated folders. This just helps to make sure you stay organized and you don't mix any data between two different projects, which can be difficult to extract later on. I'd like to talk about the sample rate and the bit depth. Now, these are the two main aspects of the digital audio preferences, and where you're going to find those in Logic Express. I opened up a Logic Express file already. This is a new file. The first thing you're going to want to do is go up to File, Project Settings, and Audio. Once you're there, you'll notice that there's a sample rate. Now, this is originally set to 44.1 kilohertz, but I've gone ahead and changed it to 48 kilohertz. The reason for that is basically because, first of all, a lot of people work with audio and video, and a lot of the video producers want to make sure that the audio is working at the same rate. The reason for that is because if you don't have the kilohertz at the same rate, later on it can be very difficult to mix. If the kilohertz isn't set properly, this can change the frequency if you actually change the kilohertz later on in your project. Not only that, but it also allows essentially for the recording to be done at a lower level, so you don't have to worry about so much about distortion. Your input can be turned down a little more, just slightly more than if you had it set at 44.1 kilohertz. So that's the sample rate, and again, sample rate is just basically how many times per second your audio interface is actually taking in audio. So if it's set at 48 kilohertz per second, that means 48,000 times it's taking measurements per second of the audio that is coming in. So it's very true to life, which is why it sounds like sound to the ear. If you go into your Logic Express preferences and you click down on audio, which I have the box opened already, you'll notice that you find 24-bit recording down here, and you're going to want to go ahead and click on that. The reason for that is because, well, CD quality is 16-bit recording, but you're going to want to go a little bit above that in order to get a better dynamic range. This allows you to really get the essences of all the different types of instruments you're recording while you're recording. Later on, that might get a little bit compressed into a 16-bit recording for when you actually compress the sound file onto a CD. But for the recording process, you're going to want to make sure it's at the highest quality. Then we're going to talk about the recording file type, and you're going to go ahead and find that in the audio preferences, and if you go to general, you'll notice the recording file type is here, and I have it set to WAV, and I have it specifically set to the broadcast WAV file. And this basically is excellent because it's, first of all, an uncompressed data file, which means that the audio that is coming in is not going to be tarnished in any way. It's not going to be basically compressed or zipped down into an MP3 style. The quality of the audio is going to be as true to how it came in through the signal flow. And you have different options, but the broadcast WAV file is going to have metadata, which is going to make it a little bit easier if, in case you lose data or your hardware crashes, you're going to be able to get that data back. If you take a look at the hardware settings, you're just going to want to make sure that your devices are all set up. I'm recording out of a PreSonus Firebox. So the output and the input is going straight through that, and I'm actually putting it into my headphones. But the microphone is being picked up from the PreSonus Firebox, not directly through a USB or anything like that. Lastly, you're going to want to make sure that the buffer size is set quite low. So down below that, you have the buffer size, and I have it set to 128. 128 is a good low buffer size, which allows you to have low latency, meaning that as you're recording, there is very little delay in between the sound actually coming from your guitar or your voice in through your microphone, through your cables, into your audio interface, and into your computer, and then back out. So you're going to be able to hear your recording as you're recording it without any real noticeable difference. It's only very slight, couple of milliseconds, perhaps. Later on, you can, during the mixing phase, you can actually set the buffer size up to 1024, and this will allow you to then use more plugins and really get different audio effects. So hope this helps, especially if you're using Logic Express. And thanks for listening. Take care.